All right, so everybody that's listening to us, we have a very special guest. But before we get into the interview, like, subscribe, share on the podcasting sites. We do hope you do that. Obviously, if you're listening to on the radio, you can't do that on the radio, but please like, share, and subscribe on the podcasting sites. And thanks so much for always listening to everybody that's listening or watching this, for that matter, on the internet or on the radio. Again, we have a special guest today, Dr. Shila Patel here. She is coming to us out of Florida. I won't say where because that's not anybody's business.
Thank you.
But besides the point, she's wrote multiple books about how this country is in crisis. We all know this from interviewing many different politicians on this program, doctors, and people in general as far as mental health, that we have multiple crises that were happening before COVID, but were really elevated due to the lockdowns and also the political unrest throughout COVID and even beyond with, it's still going on now. Again, Dr. Shila Patel, she has 3 books out. It's Us Unhinged, Us Fractured, and Us Unhinged Part 2. We're going to talk a little bit about each book. We might not hit all the books here today, but we're going to try. If not, we're going to do a couple of different interviews just so Dr. Shila can get all the information out about these good books, because we do hope people read these, Dr. Shila, because we want to try to bring the country together. It seems like politicians on both sides want to tear us apart, whether it's about racism, whether it's about sexuality, whether it's about political issues in general. It's just tearing people apart and not bringing people together. And my opinion is, and I'll shut up and let you talk, Dr. Shila, is they're doing this because they make money off ripping us apart and having us fight each other about nonsensical issues. Instead of bringing us together, which would help the country and the world, they're making the money. But anyways, I will end there. But Dr. Shila, thanks so much for coming on the program.
You're very welcome. Thank you for having me here, Rob.
And you can find more about Dr. Shila. It's Dr. Shila. It's Shila Patel, PATEL.com. Again, Dr. Shila Patel, just DR, not spelled out doctor, just DR. Facebook, it's Shila Patel 2. And Twitter, it's MANJRI56 Patel. We'll put that all in the description box for people that want to check this out on the internet, so they can follow Dr. Shila and learn more about her in general. We do want you to tell the listeners a little bit about your journey in life, Dr. Patel, if you could. So can you tell the listeners a little bit about you? I know I gave a little synopsis, but go more in depth.
Well, I was born in Kenya in Africa, and I lived in Africa till the age of 16. I think that really kind of fomented me in the different cultures, different ways, different people, different socioeconomical status, and how people can work together. Then I was really raised by in an Indian culture, because both my parents originally came over to Africa from India. So we grew up in an Indian culture, which is very family orientated. My father was really into helping others, how you can bring everybody together and help each other, and everybody progresses upward. After the age of 16, when I finished high school, I went over to England. And the reason I went over to England was because Indians were British citizens. And so when British was ruling India for over 200 years, they made us all British citizens. And so we were able to go to England for further education, because a lot of the higher education in Africa was not really seen as college degrees in the rest of the world. So you either went to England or you went to India. And I'm glad we went to England. And actually, I went up to St. Andrews for medical school. And then I was in Manchester, where I did my clinical training. And then I stayed a year to do my housemanship, which allowed me to be a registered physician in England. I came over to America at the age of 26 after finishing my medical training because my parents had already moved over to America to pursue the American dream. And when I look at the journey that my father had, he grew up extremely poor. He had $12 in his pocket when he came over at the age of 17 from India to Africa. And then how hard he worked in Africa to make something of himself, put himself through school, became an accountant. And then he wanted all three of his daughters to have a college degree because my mother's mantra was that you need to be able to stand on your own 2 feet. You need to be able to take care of yourself. You need to be able to take care of your family. And sadly, if you end up in a bad marriage, you can get out and be able to take care of yourself. So that was mom's mantra. And dad's mantra was, you're going to study hard and you're going to have a college education. So I went to medical school and I came over here and did my residency in Georgia. And I've always, writing my books, you get introspection on why you pursue certain careers. At the age of 16, I had a friend who tried to commit suicide. And if anyone knows the problems between Hindus and Muslims, she was a Hindu dating a Muslim boy. And when her father found out, it became a big issue. And at that time, I never used to think about depression, anxiety, stressors, but I was exposed to somebody trying to commit suicide at the age of 16. And luckily, she survived. And then all through my medical career, I had a really close friend, and he ended up having bipolar disorder. And after 7 years of medical school, he had to drop out. And he ended up becoming an accountant. His family was very supportive. And that is why I am also a big advocate of supporting people that need help. And he has led a very productive life despite having a fairly significant psychiatric problem. And so when I finished my medical training and deciding on which specialty to go into, somehow I was just drawn into psychiatry and especially child psychiatry because I really wanted children. I liked children. I was not able to have children um, because of ectopic pregnancy and complications from that. But I always refer to all the children that were under my care in the hospital as my children and worked 24/7, being on call, admitting them to the hospital. I was about one of the only two child psychiatrists in the community doing outpatient work. So at the end of my working life at the age of, after 25 years of doing psychiatric work, I decided to hang up the shingle because at that time I felt like I was kind of burnt out after having dealt with so many families with negative emotions, depression, anxiety. And another thing about Indians is we really believe in destiny. So one of the things that happened was my father had a major heart attack 6 months after I retired. So I was driving down from Georgia to Florida all the time, trying to take care of him, taking him to the doctors. And then both my parents were getting frail, so we moved down to Florida, took care of them. And then my father passed away 6 months after I moved to Florida. So I've been taking care of mom for 10 years. And also in my journey moving to Florida, I have come across a friend who developed cancer of his tongue. So I have been the main caregiver for him since he lives alone. And yesterday I did an interview and somebody was asking, why are you happy? And I was like, well, one, I exercise regularly. I try and eat mostly vegetarian food, but I do eat chicken and that for protein. I give of myself to others. And I think that people who volunteer and people who go outside of themselves are happier. People who are not so focused in on themselves are happier. And I think being there for my mother, who is almost 90 years old now, I take care of her 10 days a month. I leave my home, I travel 100 miles, go take care of her for 10 days a month. And just reconnecting with her I think so many people take their parents and grandparents for granted. And I think they have so much to offer you in their life and their wisdom. And that was one of the things we were talking about that with the COVID, that we lost a lot of elderly people. We lost a lot of grandparents. And I think in that sense, we also lost a lot of history for a lot of people. And connecting with my mom every month, taking care of my friend. And then I decided to write books because people said, with all your psychiatric background, maybe people will listen to what you have had to say. You've treated thousands of patients during your practice. And maybe what you have to say in a positive manner might hit home with people. And I made decent money, enough to retire since I didn't have kids and I don't have college funds or weddings to plan. And so I ended up writing, and now I'm doing podcasts and radio shows because I feel like I still need to continue giving rather than just taking.
When we talk about mental health,
Right.
obviously there was the lockdowns, and it wasn't just affecting kids, it was affecting adults. We saw that abuse was going up, whether it was kids, spousal abuse, all
Right.
this went up in the lockdowns. And all of a sudden, when things open up, it might get a little bit better, but it doesn't fully get
That's
better,
definitely, yeah,
period.
that's right.
Yeah, because it's already there. And the anxiety, the depression rose during that time. We saw suicides
Right.
due to the lockdowns. As humans, we need to interact with each other. That's part of what the species needs to survive, depending on each other, coming together, groups, teams, the list goes on and on. So, I know you're retired, but I'm sure you have vast amounts of people around you that former clients, friends, people in general. What are you hearing now that we're somewhat out of this pandemic? I guess we still have a lot of problems, not just health wise. We're talking about in the mental health frame too.
Well, there are two main things that happened. As you listed, a lot of issues that occurred during the pandemic. And one of the things that I wrote in my books was that society becomes a cold society. And what happens when you're not interacting with other human beings, like you said, we are not supposed to be islands. We're supposed to be interacting. We're supposed to make more face-to-face contact. We're supposed to talk to each other. When people got lonely during the pandemic, and sadly, that loneliness has continued even after the pandemic.
Right.
People lost their income, they lost their support from workplace, they lost family support, they were not able to attend weddings, they weren't able to attend funerals. So there were a lot of reasons for why people kind of got isolated. And sadly, it's not only in America, but it's all over. Even in the
Yeah.
United Kingdom, they formed a ministry of loneliness
Right.
just to deal with that major issue of loneliness. And then comes along social media, which is what everybody focused in on during the pandemic, because that was they think, interaction. Sadly, what they don't understand is that that is not interacting with people. That is just, emailing or writing short messages. They're not actually talking to anybody. They read the headline. And what are the headlines? They are those wow, hooks. Let's get their attention. And everybody has an opinion, but they also have to have responsibility to check the facts. They have the responsibility to understand the full story. And sadly, with the very minuscule, um, um, basically, their attention span is so short that people just kind of move on. And sadly, that has distanced people even more with the social media.
But there was that COVID was the catalyst
Right,
of the storm. This was going on as far as the loneliness
right.
epidemic in this country and around the world for that matter before then. I would say that it started when we started to have smartphones. And that was kind of where it was just at the starting point. It was beginning. And then obviously it's gotten worse and worse. as time goes on because, you know, I'm out of college. I've been out of college in my master's degree for a little bit now, about 8, 9 years now. When I was in college, you would see that you'd walk by, for instance, say I walked by you, and there was no waving, there was no smiling, there was no hi from the majority of people. It was just you saw that person, you'd look down at the phone, and that was it. And that was how it was going. It's even worse now. I'm
Right.
talking about 2012.
Yeah.
It's way worse now.
Well, you know what frustrates me is when you see families and couples in restaurants.
Yeah, at the dinner
That
table
for
and
me is
stuff.
the
Yeah.
ultimate, is that they're sitting down eating, so they're supposed to socialize, and everybody's looking at their phone or fact checking, or or if it goes ding, they've got to check what the ding is about. It's really sad. I mean, unless people really start pulling back and focusing on basics. What is it that makes people happy? I think what makes people happy is seeing a smile. You need to smile, even at strangers. Dr. Gupta has this great saying, which I love, which he says, a smile to a stranger or anybody is like CPR for the brain. And it's true that somebody may be having a bad day, but you make them smile, you say something
Right.
nice, it goes such a long way. And I think people have forgotten to connect. The other side of the coin also is that, like you say, 2016 election, since then, so many people have got angry, frustrated. They don't, they can't really rely on, like you said, politicians on both sides of the aisle. They've caused
Yeah.
so many issues and so much anger and frustration. And that has set people against people. I mean, I have lost really good friends. I've lost faith in some people because of our differences of opinion. Before, you could talk about differences of opinions and people could still remain friends. But sadly, now, they're so staunch in their opinions that they don't want to listen to anything. They don't want to look at the facts. They don't, they believe in something. And sadly, that's not the America I came to 40 years ago. Things have changed so much that, yesterday I was talking about, do we still
Yeah.
the American dream? And I'm glad to say that despite what the polls say, 71% still believe in a good future, that there is a positive future for, Americans. But at the same time, the statistics on mental health is horrendous. And,
Yeah.
68% of the people say that life was better in the past than it is now.
So let's just talk about, because you did dabble into this a little bit with the politics issue. And I know this too personally because I've had some people that I've been friends with, and, I mean, they just totally shut you down now. And I was the type of person, I've changed a little bit politically, I would say, since 2020. Regardless of that, I always try to listen and get all kinds of information and then come to a thorough opinion. I'm not a person that regurgitates Fox News or MSNBC or these other programs in general. I actually don't even watch that stuff anymore. I listen to alternative media on YouTube and people that I think, and on both sides. I listen to both sides, even though I might not like the other side or believe in what they believe in. I like to hear what they got to say too, because I think it makes you a more informed person to know
Around it.
the other side is thinking in general. Again, you don't have to agree or believe what they believe in, but you just listen just for more information. I think it makes you a better person because you're more informed. Anyways, regardless of that, what do you talked about losing all these people. What do you think is going on here? Because I know a lot of people will say, and I'm not a Trump person, but I think a lot of people will say it is Trump. I think that Trump is not the problem. I think a lot of people see him and they have all these issues. And we talked about this, the loneliness,
Right.
the wages,
Right.
the changing of the country, and they see a person that's saying what they want to say, but if they say it out loud, they'll get canceled. And and so it's not really, I would say Trump is the messenger. He's not the savior for these people's problems. I know I might have went a little gobbledygook on you there, but uh, if you, I don't know. I think that this went on before with Obama too. I
Right.
think this is, going on with Bush.
Mhm.
We go all the way back with Clinton, with the woman. I mean, we could go back and just give a problem for every person that's been in power.
Nobody's perfect, right?
Right. So I guess what I'm getting to is there a solution for this? Because you have the people on the left that hate Trump. They think he's the Antichrist. You have the people on the right that think Biden is a demented fool.
Right.
I mean, and it seems like you can't get these people together because you can't change them because, as you just stated, they're set in stone. Again, I don't like either of these guys. I think they're both clowns, but that's me.
Right.
And I'm not voting for either
And
one
not
of
that both of them
them.
are not good for the country, but
Yeah.
I cannot
Anyways,
believe you have 80-year-olds running when there's a whole generation of young
listen,
people that could.
it's sad. Anyways, but do you see any kind of solution to this? Because I told you earlier on, I don't think that there is because I don't think they want it to be. I think
Right.
the objective is to keep raking in the cash,
Right.
have everybody fight against each other, keep pumping up the volume. People will die. They don't give a damn if people die or whatever it may be. That's just a part of life. So again, do you think there's a solution to this, or do they even want it to have a solution for this?
My thing is that you have to find a solution for yourself. I don't know if there's going to be a solution for the country. And if enough people say, I don't like this division. I don't like this anger. I don't like this frustration. I don't like this not getting anything done. And I will not listen. I will, like you said, we're going to check out from listening because what does the media do? They are, they hype up the negativity. So
I
you're
think they're propagandists. That's what I think.
right. And so what they do is they focus in on all that negative stuff to keep drawing people in. My problem with Trump is as a child psychiatrist, I always used to focus in on, hey, let's look at this as a team approach. And if the politicians are fighting, the Americans are the children, if they are upset and angry and not getting along, then how are the Americans going to get along? So what you have to do as children is you have to say, okay, who is the better role model? We have to work on ourselves, thinking about if I had a child, what are the good qualities of the person that I would like to incorporate into myself? And that's the problem I have with Trump is that he's very negative. He wants to retaliate.
Hmm.
The autocratic stuff that goes on, him associating with Putin and Chinese Premier Z and the North Korean guy. And my thing is that what message are we giving to the children and the American people is that the direction we want to take the country in? Do we want to continue to stay angry? And you're right that both the sides of the politicians inflame the problems, but you don't have to get caught up in that. You can make decisions for yourself. You can learn to be happy with your family, what you do, and how to uplift not only your own family, but the community that you live in. And by
Yeah.
being more tolerant, because tolerance has really gone out of the window. And I think
Yeah.
that's what you're saying, that we're no longer wanting to listen to each other. We're no longer wanting to listen to what they have to say and make
Right.
sense of it. Does that make
Uh,
sense?
yeah, no, and again, I'm not a Trump person, but I do feel, and as a person that was a Democrat in the past, I changed my registration, but just recently. But regardless of that, uh, the people that vote for Trump, I have a lot of friends, obviously being from Florida, you would know people that would,
Like
vote
everybody
Trump.
here.
I mean, it's a very Trumpian state. But regardless of that, we as people that don't like Trump have to kind of listen and hear these people out. Again, there's going to be wacky birds on both sides, but you have to kind of cut those people out and kind of just listen to the people that aren't wacky and why are they voting for these people? What happened in their life? What kind of policies are they voting for? I think that was lost. I think there was a person in the Democrat Party that was pushing for that, and that was the guy that I voted for was Bernie Sanders. But besides the point, he was actually talking to those people that voted for Trump, and I think he would have got them to vote for him. But regardless of that, I didn't see that with these other people that were running as Democrats. They would talk down to these people. These people, a lot of them have lost their livelihoods as far as jobs being automated, jobs being shipped overseas. You cannot just say that they're angry because they're racist, they're anti-Semitic, they're this and that. You have to kind of go to those people, listen into those people. And again, there are going to be those people that are in that kind of wavelength of racist, anti-Semitic, sexist, all that stuff like that. That's on both sides. But you got to kind of listen to these people and figure out what they're thinking. So maybe you can create policies as far as a politician to kind of help them out. And maybe that will cut out some of their hatred. Just my opinion, just what I've seen talking to these people. I don't think that everybody that is a Trump person is some kind of psycho nut. Again, I think that we need to listen to people more, as you stated throughout the conversation, uh, Doc, that we have to do that. And I think that people are not listening. And I think that's the reason why we did get Trump as president, because, again, people like Hillary Clinton were not listening to the voters, and either was Barack Obama for that matter. But, anyways, that's my opinion on that. And I know we're about to run out of time. So I would like to end, and I would love to have you on again because we didn't really go into the books. And I think that's something that we need to go into. And we'll formulate that after the interview. But, we talked about a lot of different things here. What do you hope the viewers learn from today's conversation?
Have your audience take away from today is how they're responsible for their own lives. They're responsible for what happens, the decisions they make. Don't look outside and don't look for somebody else to fix the problem. Take in the facts, do what's best for you and your family. Is this a healthy decision? Are you teaching your children the right way to act, the right way to look at things? What would you like in your own life personally? Are you exercising? Are you eating right? Are you doing everything to stay healthy? Mentally, are you smiling enough to be able to present a happy face? Because if you're presenting yourself being happy, then you are internally going to feel happy. So overall, you have to remember it is your life, your decisions, and you're responsible for how you continue forward in life. Don't let people pull you down and take you in the wrong direction. So that would be my
Again, Dr. Shila Patel here on Fire Breathing Rob. Dr. Shila, as we end, where can people find you? I know we shouted that out at the beginning of the show, but if you could just say it again as we end.
Sure. My website is www.drshila, S-H-I-L-A, Patel.com. And really, all my books are on Amazon. So if you just look for books by Dr. Shila Patel on Amazon, they will all be there. And you'll be able to look at and see what information is in each one of them.
All right. Again, Dr. Shila Patel, we're going to have you on again. We didn't get into all the nits and crannies on the book. We kind of went into all kinds of different topics, but hey, sometimes it's good to just let everything out there and let everything fly and just go with the wind. And that's what we did today. And I'm very grateful to have you on. I think there's a lot you can bring to the table, and I hope people go to the website and go to Amazon and look at the books in general. But Dr. Shila Patel, thanks so much for coming on the program, and I look forward to our next conversation.
Thank you so much, Rob, for having me here. I appreciate the opportunity.